Just to get this started again, what we'd like to do tonight is present a brief, maybe 5 or 6 slides summary. We're going to try not to repeat the same slides that we showed you the last couple times that we've talked about this. And what we're looking for tonight, we're not looking for a decision on what we're doing with the budget. We're not making a final decision. We're just here to answer all your questions. Aaron has his budget book there. He's going to provide you some more detail on some items and to answer as many questions as you have. So we're not looking to pass a budget tonight. We're not even close to that. This is all informational for the board. I'm going to let Aaron go.
I'd like to start by referencing one topic that Jay had said earlier. Mill Creek, as expenditures per student, is 466 out of 500 districts. 466. That's low when you look at your expenditures per student. We don't have a lot of money to go around when you're sitting that low. But we'll move on.
And we're not spending as much money as 464 other districts in the state.
Okay, so we'll look here. These are common slides, but I did update the budget, and I will give a brief analysis after I go through these 5 slides. And as you see, this is looking at us just trying to benchmark ourselves against the state average and the local average. Is our local revenue here. Again, we've heard this all along. We've been saying 67% of our total revenue is locally driven. Come down here to 31.2 for our state and 1.77. You will see that this is a slight difference here. Based on the federal guidelines that were provided last year, and they're still changing, there's a number of account code changes. Part of that is our IDEA funds, which were previously recognized in the Function 8000s. Well, they asked you to cut it to 6832, which is a pass-through function. So that is shown here. It would have been historically in your federal revenues. Now you'll see it in your local. But nevertheless, you can see here that we rely heavily on our local revenues as compared to the state average as well as the local average. So let's take a look at our total revenue. So we know, and Jay actually reinforced for us, that real estate makes up primarily your local revenues. For us, it's the tune of about 56%. Our local Act 511 taxes, 7%, so on and so forth around the line. Here's the big ticketed item, is the basic ed subsidy here. Jay did speak about how unfair that funding formula is. 15% of our total budget is all that we were provided based on no logical way, but second, not even the expenditures incurred. The rest of our state funding, this 13% or the special ed, it's based on expenses for which we've already incurred. We're reimbursed back half. So 15% of our total budget is given just for us to use. Let's take a look at our expenditures here. Our instructional programs make up about $57.1 million. Our instructional support services are $31.2. Non-instructional, $1.6. Our debt to about $6.8 for our total expenditures to be about $96.8. So I did update these, assuming that we would take our revenue to the index and without anything else, which will show that we're slightly above $1 million deficit currently. Another topic to focus on here is this $1.6 million is our community service, which we did add for some professional or public relations. But yeah, so a lot of these may change, and you'll see this in the forecast, or not in the forecast, but in the analysis for which I'll provide. Because the account codes changed, it did change around where certain areas are coded. Let's take a look at our expenditures in based on object here. Well, if we look at our salaries and our bennies, we're still sitting here with about 72% total budget. And then you have your purchase professional services at about $3.7 million. 2.1 for purchase property, so on and so forth down the line. You can see here that this is the percent change from last year's budget. Our tuition number, I did add additional amount, which is driving most of the 13%. A lot of our equipment's going bad. We have to replace this, it's all outdated, which is driving a lot of this 30% change here.
Aaron, what's at the bottom? Looks like something's cut off.
That's a grand total,
Okay.
which will tie back to this grand total.
Okay.
But it's a total change of roughly 5.8%, I believe. Yeah. So if we take a look at our expenditures here, we've always been talking about that we have very little control over what expenditures we have. We already said here about 73% is salary and benefits driven. We have debt that make up another 7%. Transportation 5%, tuition 3%, utilities 2%. We have 11% at that point in time for which we truly control. 11% of our total budget. That doesn't include.
Go back to that 11%, the other, what we control. We have to pay out of that. Charters?
No, I added that.
Oh, you put that in?
Tuition
Okay.
and utilities I took out.
So how about some examples of, are there other things in there, or?
Yeah, our field trips, our lease payments in there right now for that IT lease, K through 8.
Contracts?
Yeah, contracts.
Outside contracts,
Yes.
not teacher contracts, outside contracts. Okay.
Get, right,
Special education in there?
yes.
Okay.
What about our
So-
contributions to like the IU or?
Correct, that would be in
Those would be
there.
outside contracts
That's
and
part of that,
special
right?
education costs, which are excessive.
Yeah, those would probably make up the majority of that. You're talking the Barber Center contracts for which we have, the contracts with the IU. Yeah, most of those would drive that.
So again, that percentage is more about what? Because those are fixed costs as well.
I mean, we would be down anywhere between 5 and 7% roughly of what we charge. So I'll end with this slide. Again, as we've been talking about, we need to build a fund balance, and our policy does state that we will be within 8% of our total expenditures. Let's look at historically where our fund balance was and where we've been trending, because we've spent the fund balance to balance the budget. We really have nothing to spend as compared to the state average, our cohorts who are funded much like we are, or even the IU averages. We're well below in what our fund balance is. And I think that's critical to continue to come back to, because we also need to set aside start a capital reserve. This bond money is drying up, and we need to spend it within a certain period of time. We have. Now we have to start to look long-term at our buildings and go from there. And plan ahead rather than be more reactive.
And I keep mentioning about the VOTEC, that's coming down the pike here as well, which our cost is about $9 million for what they want to do out there.
So I'll end with, or I'll jump into, that's the end of the slideshow. Does anyone have any questions with that? And of course, I will send that out, and it will be publicly, it will be presented on the website.